Hi, and welcome to The Regulated Mother. I'm your host, Afshan Tafler, nervous system resilience coach and mother of a hypersensitive, high needs child. If you're raising a differently wired kid with PDA, autism, OCD, ADHD, or big emotional needs, this is a space for you. Here we talk about what most people don't, how it really feels, how your nervous system responds, and how to find your way back to calm, courage, and connection, even on the hardest days. You're not alone. Let's begin. Parenting a hypersensitive, high needs child can feel like being caught in a storm that never lets up. Your child is in distress multiple times a day. You try everything to help, but nothing seems to work. You feel powerless, exhausted, and like you're running on fumes. And then one day you realize there's this fog that has settled in, and you're waking up more numb and going to bed more flat. You try to be more positive or feel grateful, but the heaviness doesn't lift. You just feel depressed. In this episode, I want to help you to understand why this happens, why depression is such a common experience in this kind of parenting, and how to gently support yourself to shift out of it, starting from the inside out. So, to begin, I want to share a bit about my own journey with this. There was a long stretch of time where my son was having 5-hour rages daily. It was so intense. He couldn't sleep, he stopped going to school, he lost interest in everything he once loved. I was constantly activated and exhausted and depleted. And no matter what I tried to do to help my child, nothing was helping. I would wake up feeling this dread. I would walk around on eggshells all day. And then I would go to bed trying to convince myself I was grateful. But under all the coping tools and affirmations, I was depressed. I didn't recognize it at first because I was still functioning, but I was slowly starting to shut down and I was cycling more between frustration and collapse. And this wasn't just emotional, okay? This was physical. I could feel it in my whole body. It was heavy and I was dragging myself around. And at the time, I didn't fully understand what was happening, but now I do. And it's something that many mothers live with without even realizing it. So let's talk about what depression actually is, because understanding it can help to loosen its grip on you. Okay, so depression isn't just sadness, it's the body and brain entering a protective shutdown mode because everything feels like too much. Okay, from a clinical standpoint, depression is diagnosed when symptoms like persistent low mood or disinterest in activities, fatigue, sleep issues, and hopelessness. So, those symptoms last more than 2 weeks and they interfere with life. And doctors often explain it as a biochemical imbalance, particularly with neurotransmitters like serotonin. So this view is valid, okay, and medication can help some people to feel better. But what we also know now is that our brain chemistry is shaped by life experience and ongoing stress, trauma, sleep deprivation that many of us moms experience, nervous system overwhelm. This can all contribute to depressive states, especially for parents of neurodivergent or high needs children, when the stress can feel relentless because of their constant activation and higher needs. So get this, okay? The research shows that around 50% of mothers parenting a child with autism report high depressive symptoms, compared to just 6 to 14% of parents of neurotypical children. That's not a small gap, and it validates what so many of us are living through. So this isn't a flaw in you, okay? It's your body reacting to extraordinary demands and the lack of recovery from them. So let's go deeper now into what causes this from the inside. both, in three ways really: emotionally, physically, and biologically. So these are some of what I see at the as the root causes of why we can become depressed. Okay, so number one is emotional suppression. So parenting our high needs kids, it triggers a lot of emotions in us. And when you don't have space, okay, space, permission to feel and process your grief and your rage or the powerlessness you may feel, then your system automatically suppresses all of that just to help you to keep going. Okay, so that suppression of the emotions, it gets buried deeper and deeper, but eventually it creates this load, and this load gets so heavy that the system ends up going numb so that you don't have to feel all of it. Okay, and that numbness is your body saying, I can't keep carrying this. So you can think of depressed as like the pressing down, right? Depressing, pressing down of emotions. And when there is no outlet, then the only option becomes to numb them down because otherwise it would be all too much. So the second reason, as I see a root cause, is nervous system shutdown. So from a nervous system perspective or a somatic, so body-based point of view, every time your child activates, your body automatically mobilizes this fight or flight energy, right? So they activate and we feel this activation, and then our body automatically brings forth this impulse to either fight or flee. Okay, but we can't act on those impulses as parents, right? We got to show up and function. So all that energy, that fight flight energy that's mobilized along with the adrenaline and the cortisol with it, ends up getting suppressed and shut down. And so the more and more we do that over time, the nervous system starts to believe this is inescapable. Okay, I cannot fight and I cannot flee. So then the system drops into this dorsal vagal shutdown of freeze or collapse. Okay, so that's what depression often is from this somatic point of view. It's a way our nervous system chooses to survive because it's all too overwhelming, and we don't feel like we have agency to control the challenges happening around us or inside of us. So the third reason, or the third, root part of the root cause can be genetics, biochemistry, and nutritional support. So I'm lumping these all together. So, both of my parents had something called seasonal affective disorder, or commonly known as SAD or SAD, and what this is that in the winter months, due to less sunlight, you can end up feeling more depressed because sunlight helps you to produce more serotonin. And I had the same condition for most of my younger life. Okay. And at first I thought it was purely genetic because my parents had this as well. But what was interesting was that when I left my family environment and I moved to New York, the SAD or the SAD disappeared. And I no longer got this in the winter months. So that told me it's not just about genes, it's about environment and modeling and how we learn to be automatically, right, based on what we observed growing up. Now, from a nutritional perspective, years later, when my son was born and he wasn't sleeping and he was so colicky, okay, and it was really hard to take him anywhere. I started to feel more depressed. I saw a functional medicine doctor at the time, and I started taking some supplements like vitamin D3 and other vitamins that supported my thyroid and my genetics, and specifically my what's called a methylation cycle, which is a process that helps regulate stress and mood and helps your body to detox better. And it really helped stabilize me in a way that I could feel okay and that depression didn't take a hold on me or affect me so much. Okay, so it got me to a better place mood wise. So nutritional support can really help, and that includes diet as well. And then the fourth thing that can be connected to the root cause of depression is circadian rhythm and sleep. Okay, so sleep isn't just about rest, it's about hormonal and emotional regulation. So sleep can be huge. And I know that this is a really hard one for those of us who have a lot of sleep challenges with our kids. So stay with me here. I feel you. Okay. So you have the circadian rhythm, and this is your internal body clock, and it needs natural light to function. So when it's disrupted and you're not following sort of the natural wake cycles of the sun and then the sleep cycles of the moon, when this all gets disrupted, then your body struggles to produce serotonin and melatonin, and your mood begins to tank. Okay, so serotonin is that feel good chemical that makes you feel more happy. Melatonin is the hormone that and the chemical that helps you to sleep. Okay, but those start to tank as you don't sleep as well and as your circadian rhythm gets disrupted. So many of us are moms are up at night, right? Especially if you have a PDA autistic child whose sleep schedule, can change. And then they're up at night and you're living in survival mode and you're losing access to the very rhythms that can help us feel more emotionally stable. And that's really hard. And if this is the way it is for you right now, I want you to know I get it. I was there, and sleep is often an issue in my home still. My son still has these ongoing sleep challenges where he stays up all night. Now I don't stay up fully all night with him anymore, but I still stay up pretty late some nights with him. So I just do the best that I can to prioritize sleep, if I can. And if not, then I make sure I use my other supports to help my body get the nutrients it needs so that I don't drop so low. So number 5 is exercise and movement. And this can really affect depression. And there's many, many studies on exercise and movement help to help depression and anxiety. Um, so there was one point where I really had to make my 30-minute outdoor walk non-negotiable. Okay. And if it was the one thing I did every day, I did this because like even if I was tired and even if nothing was working, I walked, okay? And almost every time I came back feeling different. I came back feeling more capable, less foggy, and it was the combination of the sunlight, the movement, the rhythm, and the breath that literally pulled me out of shutdown, right? Because when you're in shutdown, it's a place of low conserving energy, right? And it's a place of low energy. And what shutdown needs is cues of safety and then slowly adding energy back in. So my walk was that for me. And it didn't solve everything, but it really helped me to feel like me again, even just for a little while. But the biggest difference I saw, okay, is how I would more easily go into anger and rage the days that I didn't walk, okay? How easily I would get more activated when I didn't walk. And the days that I did walk, I was able to stay more calm. And so I really made walking a priority. So exercise, hugely important. So those are some of the physical and biochemical things that you can do to help support your nervous system from dropping so low. But there's something else I also need to name here, which is this deep, hidden inner conflict that we have as mothers. And it is something that so many mothers feel, but hardly ever say out loud. And it's this: I feel depressed because of my child. Okay. And that thought alone can bring on a wave of shame. Because what kind of mother thinks that, says my inner critic. Okay. It sounds like a betrayal of the very person you love the most in the world. But the truth is that this is not about a lack of love. Okay. It's about the pain of loving so deeply and still feeling so powerless, powerless to help your child, right? It's about pouring everything you have into helping your child and watching it not work. And that powerlessness, it builds over time. And if there's no space to feel it and the grief that comes with it, and no way to resolve it, then your system starts to shut down. And that's how depression begins, because your nervous system feels like it's trapped and stuck with no way out. And then there's the shame that comes with that feeling. Okay. Even having these thoughts like, I wish things were different. I feel like I'm drowning. I don't want to do this anymore. All of that feels so wrong to even think as a mother. And you wonder, what kind of mother feels this way? And here's the answer that I want to give you: a deeply loving mother, a human being whose nervous system is overwhelmed, depleted, and trying to survive a situation that's bigger than one nervous system can hold alone. Okay, so this inner war between the deep love and the deep depletion is at the heart of why so many of us end up in a depressed state. And it's not just emotional at this point, it really becomes biological too. When your nervous system is constantly mobilizing to help and fix and protect, and nothing changes, it starts to believe this is inescapable. Okay, and that's the clincher for encoding trauma. Okay, that belief, that felt sense that this is inescapable. Because that belief pushes your system into this dorsal vagal shutdown, the freeze or collapse state where trauma takes hold and becomes encoded. Okay, and that's the biological basis of depression, too. It's your nervous system saying, I've tried everything and now I'm out of energy. And here's what makes this even heavier: the grief. Because it's not just about your child's behavior, it's about the loss of what you thought parenting would be, the loss of who you thought you'd be as a parent, and the idea that if you just loved enough or tried hard enough, things would work out. And when that belief dies, it hurts deeply. And when you don't have space to feel that grief, it turns inward and it becomes shame and it becomes numbness. And that's often what we feel as depression. So if you're feeling this inner war, if you love your child deeply and feel like their needs are crushing you, then please know this: there's nothing wrong with you. These thoughts don't make you a bad mom. They make you a human mom trying to carry more than any one person should have to carry alone. And when you begin to name this conflict, and when you give it space, and when you start to feel what's underneath, then you can begin to heal. Okay, so everything I just brought up was very intense and it may have been triggering to you. So if you need, just take a moment, come back to the present moment, okay? Feel your feet on the floor, notice your breath, perhaps even just orient to your environment. Okay, looking around the room, noticing and naming things that you see that are neutral or bring you comfort. Okay, just taking a moment to come back to the present if you were triggered by everything that I've been talking about, because this stuff can feel pretty heavy. And if you're realizing now that you would like to get some help for your depression, I want to name two therapies that are both very non-pathologizing, okay, and really understand the roots of depression and help you to process and release the trapped emotions and beliefs, the trapped trauma from the past that's getting triggered in the present moment with your child and adding to the load, causing you to feel depressed. Okay, so the first therapy is somatic experiencing, which was founded by Dr. Peter Levine. And this therapy is a body or nervous system based therapy that views depression as stuck survival energy. Okay, so when you're activated by your child's behaviors all day, your body mounts this response to try to fight or flee. So, not consciously, but unconsciously, mobilizes this energy, and you feel it as stress, right? Or you might feel it as, your chest pounding or tightness in your body and tension. That's fight or flight energy. And there's an impulse there, and it's automatic. It wants to fight or it wants to flee. But if we cannot fight or flee, then it resorts to going into the freeze or shutdown state. And the more we do that, then this is where depression starts to come on board. And the way out of depression isn't about pushing through and overriding, as we often find ourselves trying to do because we have to function, right? That's reality of our experience. But this is more about actually first being with that protective response of depression in that dorsal state. Okay, so when you're in dorsal and you're in shutdown, you want to bring cues of safety to the body. And you want to allow the body to move through that, okay, with awareness. And then once it feels like that shutdown is seen and heard and validated, then the body wants and it feels safe, then the body can move into the defensive response and express what it never got to complete. Okay, and when you complete that trapped impulse to fight or flee, then the body releases that stored survival energy and it feels free again. So, working with the trap survival stress response and completing it, okay, is what somatic experiencing does to help you get out of depression and feeling more agency and empowered in life again, because then you don't feel stuck anymore. Okay, depression can be a lot about feeling stuck. So, in daily life, becoming unstuck physically can look like, moving more. So, if you're feeling depressed, to make movement, a priority. Maybe that's exercising, or maybe that's just feeling into that fight or flight energy that didn't get to be expressed and noticing what was the impulse that wanted to happen. Like let's say you have a big activation or meltdown with your child, and then after the fact, can you take a few moments to feel into what did I really want to do, fight or flee? Can I feel into that? And can I allow myself to safely express that and release that, whether it's rage or fear or grief? Allow yourself to safely feel it and express it and release it from the body. So, what I often do after a big activation is I can feel that adrenaline and cortisol in my system that I had to numb down in order to be okay and function. And so I do a whole body shake off. I start by bouncing gently and then I do a more vigorous shake off. Okay, and in order to get a lot of that activation out of my system and to release that stored energy. So that's a simple tool that prevents me from later going into freeze, shutdown, and then depression. Okay. Now, the second therapy I love is internal family systems, or IFS, and it takes more of a parts approach. So, IFS views depression as a protective part of you. Okay, so you are not that depression. You are your true self with a capital S, and you can become the awareness of the depression and you can bring compassion and curiosity and care to it. So IFS sees depression as a protective part, trying to shut everything down so that you don't have to feel what's underneath, which is often this grief or rage or fear or powerlessness. So when you meet this part of you with compassion and validate it for trying so hard to protect you, and then you get curious and ask it questions like, what are you afraid I'll feel if you don't protect us with this depression? Then you begin to see the wounds it protects. Okay, so it's really from this self energy that you can heal those wounds. So with IFS, it also helps you understand the meaning that parts of you or your subconscious has taken on and is making about life. Things like I'm trapped, right? Where did that come from? because it usually doesn't come from just your child. It comes from trauma in the past, and then you can help your system to change those meanings by healing the wounds that implanted those meanings to begin with. So I highly recommend these two kinds of therapy that can help you to heal from depression and feel more agency in your life with your child. So now I really want to take a moment to talk about one of the most powerful ways to shift depression, and that is to reconnect to meaning and purpose. So studies show that having a sense of purpose is strongly linked to lower rates of depression and anxiety because depression often deepens when life feels meaningless. Okay, when life feels meaningless, then depression deepens. It's because we're suffering, with this no clear why of why we're suffering. There's no meaning behind why we're suffering. So, psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, whom I love his work, he survived the Holocaust. And, in his work, he wrote, this is a quote from him, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how." And this means that you can handle hardships so much better when you're deeply connected to the why of why of this is all happening and the bigger meaning of it all. So for many of us, depression takes hold when we feel like the suffering is meaningless. We feel trapped, like we're surviving for no reason, and we're stuck in a cycle we didn't choose. And when we can connect our pain to something greater, so when we can say, this has shaped me, this has deepened me, it has called me forward, we begin to shift from powerless to purposeful. So most of us didn't expect parenting to look like this, right? We had dreams, whether they were conscious or unconscious dreams. We had dreams of what kind of child we'd have, how parenting would feel, and what it would say about us. Okay, we often look to like redeem our past and change things for our kids, right? But when those dreams start to die because, reality isn't that way with our kids and it's not allowing for those dreams to come to fruition, okay, when those dreams start to die, it's not just grief about our child's challenges, it's the grief over the life we thought we were supposed to have. And when we cling to that old picture, then we stay stuck and we stay depressed. But when we let go of that conditioning, because that's what it really is conditioning, the conditioning that our child must fit in, our child must behave a certain way, our child must hit certain milestones on time and reflect that we're doing a good job, right? All that conditioning. When we let go of our need to fit in and be accepted, then we start to see what's been true all along. That we belong, even if our child is different. That we are enough, even if we don't look like other families. That this life, as it is, can be deeply meaningful. So, meaning, it doesn't erase the pain, but it gives the pain purpose. And for me, the purpose became becoming more compassionate, letting go of what doesn't matter, learning to love unconditionally, living more honestly, more openly, more aligned with my values, and living to be more present and more authentic. And when I started living from that place, I went from feeling like this was inescapable to seeing this as sacred work and a true gift. So this path, though not the one I asked for, is shaping me. And through that, it's shaping my child. And that ripples outward into the world. So, in closing, if you're feeling depressed right now, I want to offer you an invitation back to your true self. Can you become the awareness behind the depression? Can you witness it instead of being taken over by it? Depression is not who you are, it's a part of you. It's a nervous system protective response that is overwhelmed and trying to protect you from feeling too much. Can you meet it with compassion? Can you say, I see you, I understand why you're here? And then gently ask, what are you protecting me from feeling? And often what's underneath is grief, anger, powerlessness from both the past and the present. And this is where your healing begins. You are not a bad mother for feeling depressed. You're a human mother trying to navigate extraordinary challenges. But this is not the end of your story. If you can reconnect to meaning, to your why, and begin to live from your true values instead of your conditioned ones, then something shifts. This depression then becomes a guidepost for you, a sign that something inside you wants to change, a call to become more of who you truly are. This is the path to reclaiming your power. This is the path to freedom. And this is the path to you. Thanks so much for listening to The Regulated Mother. If this episode helped you feel a little more seen, grounded, or hopeful, I'd love for you to share it with another mom who might need it too. And if you want more nervous system tools and support, head to my website, illuminateyou.ca, to grab my free ebook and video series. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. You're doing brave and meaningful work.